Some people will really fight to the death over the smallest issues. These 5 individuals let their anger and stubbornness override basic common sense, turning routine confrontations into their final moments. These real cases show what happens when the need to win an argument becomes a matter of life and death. It was September 22, 2015, at a fast food restaurant drive-thru in Columbus, Ohio. The lunch rush had created long lines of vehicles wrapping around the building and into the adjacent parking lot. Patricia Hendricks was 35 years old and worked as an insurance claims adjuster, a job that had trained her to question everything and accept nothing at face value. She was a regular customer at several fast food locations where employees recognized her as someone who always found something wrong with her order, the service, or the wait time. Patricia's approach to fast food was treating every transaction like an insurance claim that needed investigation. She would time her wait, photograph her food, and document any perceived problems for future complaints. Her car's glove compartment contained a folder of complaint letters she had sent to various corporate offices. That afternoon, Patricia entered the drive-thru during peak lunch hours. The line moved slowly due to a large catering order ahead of her, but Patricia immediately began timing the wait on her phone. When she reached the ordering speaker, she demanded to know why the service was so slow and insisted on speaking with a manager about the delay. The drive-thru worker explained the high volume, but Patricia interrupted with a lecture about staffing, placed a complex order with multiple substitutions, and continued complaining as the line backed up behind her. When Patricia reached the pickup window, her order took an additional 3 minutes to prepare due to her special requests. She immediately demanded a full refund, claiming that the delay had ruined her lunch break. The teenage worker offered to remake the order, but Patricia insisted on speaking with the manager immediately. The manager attempted to resolve the situation, but Patricia refused all offers except a full refund, announcing plans to contact corporate headquarters and post negative reviews as the delay continued. She refused to pull forward and instead got out of her car to take photos of the drive-thru setup for her complaint documentation. Cars began honking behind her as the line backed up. Patricia ignored the other customers and continued photographing what she believed was evidence of poor service design. After 5 minutes of blocking the drive-thru, Patricia finally received her refund. Frustrated and still arguing with staff, she announced that she would never return to the restaurant and began typing a complaint while still parked at the pickup window. The manager instructed her to pull forward and stop before exiting the drive-thru, but Patricia ignored the instruction and remained focused on her phone. The restaurant's drive-thru exit funneled vehicles through a short, angled right-turn-only lane that fed directly into a busy 4-way intersection. Patricia had left her car running during the confrontation and was distracted by typing her complaint. Still agitated from the confrontation and focused on finishing her complaint, she failed to check her surroundings before accelerating. Patricia finished typing her complaint and, without checking traffic, pressed the gas pedal harder than intended. Her car shot forward into the intersection without her checking for oncoming traffic. She had been so focused on her phone that she failed to notice the red traffic signal controlling the intersection ahead. A delivery truck traveling through the intersection on a green light struck her car at full speed, crushing the driver's side completely. The impact was heard throughout the restaurant parking lot as other customers watched in horror. Emergency responders arrived within minutes, but Patricia had died instantly from the collision. The drive-thru remained closed for the rest of the day while authorities investigated the accident. The intersection was temporarily controlled by police officers until normal traffic flow could resume. The investigation determined Patricia's death was accidental, caused by distracted driving and her failure to yield after exiting the drive-thru against posted instructions. No charges were filed against the truck driver, who had been traveling legally through the intersection. The restaurant installed additional signage reminding customers to check traffic before exiting the drive-thru area. The lunch rush claimed an unexpected victim in Columbus. Meanwhile, in San Diego, a self-appointed theater monitor's quest for perfect silence would lead to her own final scene. It was August 3, 2018, at a multiplex movie theater in San Diego, California. The evening showing of a popular action film had drawn a packed audience to the largest theater in the complex. Margaret Donovan was 44 years old and worked as a substitute teacher, a position that had given her strong opinions about proper behavior and respect for rules. She considered herself a serious film enthusiast and believed that other moviegoers often ruined the cinematic experience through inappropriate conduct. Theater employees knew her as someone who frequently complained about other patrons and demanded refunds for minor inconveniences. Margaret had developed her own system for monitoring theater behavior. She would arrive early to select the optimal seat for both viewing and surveillance, then spend the previews identifying potential troublemakers. Her purse contained a small notebook where she recorded violations of what she considered proper theater etiquette. That evening, Margaret had chosen a center seat in the middle section, providing clear sight lines to most of the audience. During the previews, she noticed a family with young children sitting 3 rows behind her. When the children began whispering during the opening credits, Margaret turned around and loudly shushed them, drawing attention from nearby moviegoers. The family's father politely asked his children to be quieter, but Margaret continued monitoring their behavior throughout the first act. She quietly took notes about what she considered disruptive patrons, planning to file a complaint with theater management after the show. As the film progressed, Margaret identified several other violations of her theater standards. She stood up repeatedly to confront different audience members about talking, eating too loudly, or checking their phones. Each time she moved, she would relocate to different seats to better monitor various sections of the theater, creating additional disturbances. During the film's climactic scene, the family's youngest child asked a question about the plot. Margaret immediately stood up and announced loudly that inconsiderate people like them were ruining the movie for everyone else. She declared that she was leaving to find a theater that actually enforced proper behavior standards and began climbing the steep theater steps in the dim light. Margaret was so focused on making her dramatic exit and continuing her confrontational behavior that she wasn't paying attention to where she was going. She pulled out her phone to illuminate her path, visibly agitated as she moved toward the exit. The theater's side exit was located at the top of the aisle, leading to a maintenance stairwell that connected to the lobby. The door was marked with standard exit signage, but also displayed a small, staff-only notice that patrons were not meant to use. Margaret had been focused on her indignant departure rather than the theater's layout, and the exit door was positioned where a public lobby entrance would typically be located from her seating position. Margaret reached what she believed was the door to the lobby and pushed through without checking where it led. Instead of entering a hallway, she stepped directly into a steep maintenance stairwell with concrete steps leading down to the building's lower level. The stairwell was dimly lit, and the handrails were positioned farther down the steps, out of immediate reach from the entrance. She immediately lost her footing on the steep concrete steps and tumbled down the entire flight, striking her head multiple times against the concrete walls. Her phone flew from her hand and shattered on the steps below. A theater employee heard the commotion and rushed to investigate. Margaret was found unconscious at the bottom of the stairwell with severe head trauma and multiple broken bones. Emergency responders arrived quickly, but she had sustained fatal injuries from the fall. She died from massive internal trauma before reaching the hospital. The movie was stopped temporarily while theater staff secured the maintenance area and contacted management. Additional warning signs were installed near all staff exits, and the theater implemented new policies requiring better lighting in maintenance areas. The investigation ruled Margaret's death accidental due to unauthorized use of staff-only exits. In San Diego, a cinema critic's final review ended with her own tragic fall. Back in Dallas, a return policy dispute would prove that some customers take their complaints too far. It was March 8, 2016, at an electronics retail store in Dallas, Texas. The afternoon rush had filled the customer service counter with returns and exchanges, forming a slow-moving line that stretched into the main aisle. The air carried the steady noise of scanners, receipt printers, and overlapping conversations from impatient customers waiting their turn. Brenda Kowalski was 38 years old and had spent several years refining a method she relied on when returning electronics. She routinely purchased items, used them briefly, then claimed they were defective. When stores cited return policies or time limits, she escalated by refusing to leave the counter until someone relented. Employees at multiple locations had encountered her before, recognizing the pattern of persistence and confrontation. That afternoon, Brenda approached the counter holding a phone charger she had bought 2 months earlier. The original packaging was gone, the cord showed clear wear, and she had no receipt. When the cashier explained the store's 30-day return policy, Brenda raised her voice over the surrounding noise, accusing the store of unfair treatment. As the cashier attempted to assist the next customer, Brenda stepped directly in front of the counter, blocking access and declaring she would not move until her concerns were addressed. For the next 12 minutes, the return line stalled completely. Brenda remained planted at the counter, pulling out her phone and loudly dictating a formal complaint. Other customers shifted uncomfortably behind her as she accused the store of fraud and discrimination, repeating herself while refusing to step aside. The obstruction drew attention from across the sales floor, but Brenda showed no sign of backing down. Near the front of the store, the entrance area had recently been cleaned. Earlier, rain had been tracked inside, prompting staff to mop the tiled foyer leading to the automatic glass doors. Bright yellow wet floor signs stood at both ends of the entrance, clearly visible from several angles. Despite the cleanup, the smooth tile surface remained slick. When it became clear her return would not be accepted, Brenda abruptly turned away from the counter. Her face flushed as she announced she was leaving to handle the situation herself. Still holding her phone, she moved quickly toward the exit, her focus fixed on continuing her complaint rather than her surroundings. As she approached the entrance, an employee nearby called out, warning her that the floor was wet and slippery. Brenda did not slow down. She waved the warning away, dismissing it as unnecessary interference. Moments later, another warning followed as she neared the doorway, but she continued forward, treating the caution as an insult rather than a safety concern. Brenda deliberately stepped around the first wet floor sign with exaggerated care, as if proving a point. Her phone rang as she reached the open space before the automatic doors, and she continued walking at full speed. Near the threshold, she spun mid-stride to shout back toward the service area, insisting she knew how to walk and did not need advice. Her rubber-soled sneakers hit the freshly mopped tile as her weight shifted. Both feet lost traction at once. She slipped backward violently, her legs sliding out from under her as she fell. Her head struck the tile hard as her full body weight came down, and she remained motionless on the floor, while nearby customers stepped back and store employees called for emergency assistance. Paramedics arrived within minutes and found Brenda unresponsive with severe head trauma. Despite resuscitation efforts at the scene, she was pronounced dead shortly afterward. The official cause of death was a fatal traumatic brain injury resulting from the fall. The investigation concluded that Brenda had been warned twice about the wet floor conditions and had ignored both posted signage and direct verbal warnings from staff, prioritizing her confrontation over basic safety. We've got 2 more deadly stories ahead. Make sure you're subscribed to see what happens when a movie critic's final review takes her over the edge, and how a park protester's environmental stand becomes her last. It was June 14th, 2017, at a grocery store in Tampa, Florida. The temperature had climbed to 92 degrees Fahrenheit by mid-afternoon, pushing shoppers indoors to escape the heat. The front end of the store stayed busy, with checkout lanes running steadily as customers moved through air-conditioned aisles stocked for summer sales. Diane Fitzgerald was 42 years old and well known for testing rules wherever she encountered them. She served on her homeowners association board and had developed a reputation for finding loopholes in policies most people accepted without question. Over time, she applied that same approach to shopping. Extreme couponing became a side business, with Diane purchasing large quantities of discounted products and reselling them online for profit. Her preparation was methodical. She studied store circulars, printed manufacturer coupons, tracked digital rebates, and planned combinations that pushed promotions to their limits. Her garage held stacks of boxed goods, bought cheaply through overlapping discounts. Many local stores recognized her pattern: long transactions, aggressive arguments, and refusal to accept policy explanations. Inside the checkout line, Diane unloaded a carefully selected batch of items, including several bottles of high-priced vitamins. The coupons she presented, however, did not match the brands required by the promotion. When staff explained the mismatch, Diane rejected the explanation outright. She accused the store of misleading customers and claimed the promotion was intentionally confusing. Rather than step aside, she positioned herself at the counter and refused to move, blocking the lane while repeating her complaints. The line stalled as other shoppers waited behind her. Diane pulled out her phone and began documenting what she described as unfair treatment, raising her voice as she listed grievances. Several minutes passed with no resolution. When it became clear the explanation would not change, Diane abruptly abandoned the checkout lane and headed deeper into the store, determined to prove her interpretation of the promotion was correct. She pushed her cart toward the vitamin aisle, continuing to argue aloud as she walked. The aisle was lined with tall metal shelving units, stacked with heavy bottles and containers. These fixtures were designed to support static product weight, not the forward force created by climbing or pulling items outward. Multiple warning signs posted along the aisle clearly prohibited customers from climbing shelves. Diane stopped beneath the top shelf, scanning labels for items that fit her coupon plan. A nearby employee offered to retrieve the products for her. She waved off the suggestion. Instead, she placed one foot on the bottom shelf, using it as a step, and reached upward. With each bottle she pulled forward, the load shifted away from the shelf's center of gravity. The shelving unit creaked under the changing weight. Diane continued pulling items toward herself, balancing bottles against her chest as she reached higher. The structure began to lean. In a neighboring aisle, a maintenance worker heard the sound of metal straining, but was too far away to intervene before the balance tipped. The shelving unit collapsed forward without warning. Metal framing and dozens of heavy containers fell directly onto Diane, pinning her beneath the structure. The crash echoed across the store as products scattered across the floor. Nearby shoppers screamed and rushed toward the aisle, but the weight of the fallen shelving made immediate rescue impossible. Employees called emergency services and worked to lift the unit as carefully as they could. Diane was found unconscious beneath the metal framework, suffering severe crush injuries to her chest and head. She showed no signs of recovery and died from massive trauma before paramedics could arrive. Authorities secured the vitamin aisle while an investigation was conducted. Inspectors determined the shelving had failed due to improper use rather than structural defect. Warning signs had been posted and assistance had been offered. The store later reinforced shelving throughout the location and adjusted product placement to reduce risk. Diane's death was ruled accidental, caused by unsafe climbing behavior that led to the collapse. A coupon queen's bargain hunt ended in crushing defeat in Tampa, but in Charlotte, an environmental activist's water conservation protest would become a lesson in deadly dedication. It was July 19, 2016, at a public park in Charlotte, North Carolina. By early afternoon, temperatures had reached 98 degrees Fahrenheit, with heavy humidity trapping heat close to the ground. Shade was limited along the open walking paths, and the concrete surfaces had been absorbing direct sunlight since mid-morning. Sandra Kellerman was 39 years old and spent much of her free time walking through the city's parks for exercise. Over time, she had developed firm views about environmental conservation, particularly regarding water usage. She believed most irrigation practices weaken plants by making them dependent on human intervention. Park maintenance workers recognized her as a frequent critic of watering schedules, often encountering her complaints during routine upkeep. Sandra's philosophy centered on self-sufficiency. She believed grass should survive on natural rainfall alone, even during extreme heat. To her, brown or patchy lawns were signs of resilience, not neglect. She applied these beliefs rigidly, rejecting explanations that contradicted her views. While completing her walk that afternoon, Sandra noticed the park's sprinkler system running across a large grassy area. Water arced through the air as the system cycled, soaking the ground, while the surrounding concrete radiated heat. The sight immediately drew her attention. She approached a maintenance worker adjusting the sprinkler heads nearby and began criticizing the watering schedule, insisting the grass was being weakened by unnecessary irrigation. The worker explained that the schedule was intended to prevent turf damage during heat waves. Sandra dismissed the explanation and continued lecturing about environmental responsibility. When the worker resumed his task, she announced that she would demonstrate proper conservation principles herself. Sandra positioned her body directly beside one of the active sprinkler heads, partially blocking the spray. The system continued cycling, soaking her clothing intermittently but failing to cool her core. Wet fabric clung to her skin while the concrete beneath her continued radiating heat upward. She declared the discomfort a necessary sacrifice for education. Several park visitors approached and suggested she move to a shaded area. Others offered bottled water. Sandra refused all assistance. She insisted that enduring the heat proved her point and accused onlookers of contributing to environmental waste. She then sat down on the exposed concrete path beside the sprinkler, choosing to remain in direct sunlight. Over time, the combination of radiant heat, humidity, and trapped moisture began overwhelming her body's ability to regulate temperature. She remained seated without shade or hydration, continuing to speak loudly about water conservation. As minutes passed, her speech became repetitive and disorganized. Visitors noticed she appeared confused and struggled to respond coherently. Despite repeated encouragement to move, Sandra refused. Nearly 2 hours passed as she remained in place, her body temperature rising steadily. Eventually, she slumped forward and lost consciousness on the concrete. Emergency responders arrived and found Sandra unresponsive, with signs of severe heat stroke. She was transported to a nearby hospital, where doctors worked to reduce her core temperature and stabilize her condition. Despite medical intervention, she suffered extensive internal complications caused by prolonged hyperthermia. Sandra died later that evening from complications of severe heat stroke, resulting from voluntary exposure to extreme heat and refusal of hydration and shade. Authorities reviewed the incident and confirmed that Sandra had declined assistance multiple times and ignored warnings from both park staff and bystanders. The death was ruled accidental, attributed to voluntary refusal to leave dangerous environmental conditions. In the months that followed, the park installed additional shade structures and water stations and posted heat safety warnings throughout the grounds. Thanks for watching. Want to see more deadly decisions? Click on your screen now.